Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Ponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. I am so excited to have you back, and I am so excited for this next episode. I was just chatting with Ryan for a little bit before, and I could tell this is just going to be such a good conversation. So let me introduce you to Mr. Ryan Perry. 14 years ago, he became hooked on Oxycontin and various other painkillers because he didn't want to deal with the trauma surrounding his childhood abuse. And most recently, at that point, the death of his mother. He lost everything a person could lose: self-respect, respect for others, money, his car. He even almost lost a house that he inherited. He tried many different recovery programs until he found none of them suited his needs. And finally, he had to do it himself. Now, here he is 14 years later with over 7 years clean of all substance, which is awesome, and alcohol by choice. And now he helps clients who are just beginning their recovery journey. I just want to say congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you.
My brother is 15 years recovered. So
Awesome.
it's been a part of my life since I was a little kid. And I know how difficult it is. So seriously, congratulations.
It's a different world, let me tell you.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of an idea of your Against All Odds story. What's your background?
So, I guess where it started, like you were talking childhood trauma, where it started was back when my mother and father got a divorce. Back, I was, I think, 2 years old, and we ended up moving to Northern California from Southern California to live with my grandparents. And it started with a very abusive grandfather. So, physically abusive. He was the only father figure that I had. So he was prone to backhand me if I, said things out of turn, lock me underneath the house in a crawl space. Yeah, that wasn't fun, but that happened several times. And that continued until probably age 14 or 15 when I got it through my head I wasn't going to deal with that anymore. And I just got out of there. I left for a while and didn't come back until he passed away. And
Wow.
then, that leaves a mark, obviously. And there's so much unresolved issues. And a young man never wants to admit that, hey, I have unresolved trauma that I want to deal with to get better. But it shows up later in life.
Yeah.
And for me, it showed up with wanting to, I wouldn't say abuse any substance, but use any substance that really just made me forget. You
Yeah.
know, I wasn't looking for confidence boost, a self-esteem boost. I just wanted to forget. It was a
Yeah.
part of my life and story that I wished I could erase completely. And ironically enough, I'm very happy that I have that story now because that's provoked me to do so many things to help others, to get better myself.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was my mother had she had a couple of different autoimmune disorders. So she passed away at age 56, and
Yeah.
she passed away very quickly one night. But I had taken care of her medically for many years. So it was something I was used to. And when she passed away, I had already been dabbling in painkillers, Oxycontin, oxycodone. And at that point, I just spiraled. It was just such an uncontrollable downtrend
Yeah.
for the next year. And I think towards the height of my addiction, I was taking somewhere close to 300 to 400 milligrams of Oxycontin each day.
Oh my gosh.
Is to put into perspective for those who don't know, that is more than a dying cancer patient would ever take.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in charge of caretaking for my dad prior to him passing, and he was a cancer patient, and we had to control all that. And so, yeah, that is a lot. How old were you when she passed?
When she passed, let's see, she passed in 2011. So that was 13 years ago. I was 26, 27.
Yeah.
So right at the height of my coming into my own, being in my
Yeah.
life. And she passed away, and I had already devoted a pretty significant chunk of my life to taking care of her.
Yeah.
So when she passed away, it was like this massive void that needed to be filled. I just, I didn't know what to do. There
Oh,
was so much, there was so much unknown in everything. And I kept wanting to find something to do. And it's amazing how doing something like Oxycontin or painkillers or anything really, you don't go into it thinking I'm going to become an addict and I'm going to become just a really bad version of myself. You
yeah.
go into it just wanting to stop pain,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
And that's that unresolved trauma that comes back, because one of the things I have learned during my journey of helping my clients and all of the studying and research that I do is, I think the number is probably 85 to 90% of people who are addicted to substances, alcohol, anything of that nature have unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a part of why they're doing it. It's a part of their life. And you could dig really deep and not even think you have some type of trauma. But yeah, 85 to 90% of all addiction is rooted in trauma.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, my brother, I grew up with that. He's 7 years older than me, and I think I was about 6 or 7 years old when he just started to dabble into drugs. And I remember like around 10 or 11, he would come home before my parents were like, enough is enough kind of thing that you need to leave. He would come home and he would fight with himself in his sleep, and it was just he was on all kinds of drugs. I think at some point it was like there was meth involved, there was fentanyl and heroin and like everything. It started to snowball, obviously, and he was, I want to say, maybe close to 20 years of that life. And then there was like that hard stop. And again, he's been sober for 15 years now this year. So it is definitely not something, I don't think that he was.
Actively seeking to
Yeah.
do. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have when they think about people with addiction issues, is that they're doing this by choice.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from personal experience, nobody goes into it saying, I'm going to become a drug addict. I want to lose everything.
Yeah.
I want to do this. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, agreed. It is. And it's hard to see as a family that you can't do anything to help. That's got to be a moment that they are ready. And so, yeah, definitely I can relate to a lot of that. And honestly, I could relate to that void of like, what now after a parent passes away that you caretake for? Because I feel that so heavily. My dad passed away October of 2022,
Sorry.
and thank you. And it was like my mom's still alive, but she worked, and I had the flexibility in what I did that I went to every single appointment with him while he was going through cancer treatments and all that stuff. I was there and I talked to the doctors and I knew about everything. And every hospital visit, I was able to be there. And so I felt like my days were like everything he needed and then everything that I could put around it for
Right.
my,
You build your schedule around their needs, and
yeah.
then your life comes secondary.
Yeah.
That I totally resonate with that and
That
completely.
void of like, wait a minute, what is my day gonna look like now? What is my life gonna be like now? I have this available space and void, but I don't want it. And
Yeah. You don't
it's
know what to do
like,
with it.
yeah, and it's still very bizarre to me. I have obviously occupied myself with different things. However, I would give anything for just that to be my life.
It's funny, and I never thought that I would feel this way when I was younger, but I would give almost anything that I have to give to have one more conversation with my mom. And a lot of people tell me that, oh, you're nuts, because I can feel my mom around.
Me?
She is still here, and I still feel her knocking me on the back of the head when I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, or thinking about things that I shouldn't be thinking about. I can still feel her just hit me upside the head.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the healthiest relationship either, but at the same time, it's like she was a single parent.
Yeah.
She was mom, she was dad, she was my friend. And I think it made it harder that she didn't even pass away from the autoimmune disease that she had.
No.
She was a frequent flyer in the hospital, so they all knew her, they all knew me. And she had taken a really bad fall one night on, I think it was Christmas night, and we took her to the hospital. They checked her over, looked her over, said, "Oh, you're good to go." And then January 31st of right the next year, she had another fall. Took her to the hospital. She never regained consciousness. And they found out that it was from the previous fall on Christmas, that one of her organs had actually been punctured, and she was basically going septic for the entire month.
Oh my gosh.
And like, what do you do with that? You prepare yourself that somebody's going to pass away from this specific autoimmune condition. So I've been building myself up to that. And then to hear that, okay, this was completely preventable.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of anger surrounding that too. And I'm sure that
That
added
added.
me,
Yeah.
me wanting to just forget about everything.
You never know. And I never got into any substance abuse because I watched it. So he was my biggest form of don't do drugs. The biggest drug campaign that I ever got was my brother and seeing him. So I've never done smoking or anything like that. So I'm always grateful for that. However, I feel like there was ways to mask trauma in so many other ways, and how it just was stuck deep in my body, that when it decided to come out, it was like I had cancer. Dis-ease created a disease.
Hmm.
And whether it is addiction or something like cancer, it's like your body has so much turmoil. It's in dis-ease. And so it
I love the
creates,
way you put that, by the way. Dis-ease created the disease. I love
yeah,
that term. I
yeah.
love that.
I heard it from a mentor years ago, and I'm like, that makes so much sense. That opened my eyes to, oh, well, duh, if I haven't processed the sexual assault that happened at 16, and I haven't let that go, and I haven't had the moment to process those feelings, yeah, it's going to continue to come back. And I had cancer 4 times in my life. And so until I decided that enough was enough, that my oxygen mask had to come first, and that I had to take care of me first, and that I was the biggest priority, because if I wasn't there, who was going to take care of my 3 kids? I was a single
Yeah.
mom as well. It just became like, all right, enough is enough. And it, unfortunately, at 32 was when I had that enough is enough decision, but it creates it, right? It's so much dis-ease in your body that your body's like, I need to alert you somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no age limit on when that happens. I've had clients who are in their mid 50s, and they're just going
Yeah.
through it right now. I've had clients who are young, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And it's always been interesting to me, the age range of when everything happens, which tells me obviously that trauma has no barrier, pain has no barrier at all, and it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And your negative coping mechanisms are sometimes a product of you not dealing with things
Yeah.
or you just not having the proper skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it becomes like necessary to surround yourself with people or with a mentor or with
Yes.
somebody that's going to guide you in a way that like, all right, I see you, I feel you, like I know where you're coming from. I'm maybe 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of you, and this is what we did. And this is the mindset that we start to take on. And it becomes just a guide for life, how to deal with these things. So give me an idea. What is it that you do now with your clients and so forth?
Okay, so with my clients, I would say that ideally I prefer, doesn't always happen, I prefer to work with people who are anywhere from 1 month to 2 months out of active addiction. I've worked with people in addiction. My preference is working with people out of addiction because,
Yeah.
and to your question, what does a personal coach do for these people? I'm their biggest advocate. A coach is, and what I do for them is I don't offer them 100% solution to their problem. You cannot do that because everybody's different.
Yeah.
What works for one person will not work for anybody else. But you offer small course corrections.
Hmm.
So you listen to their story, and that's a big part that I find when I talk to my clients or when I talk to people. Nobody wants to listen to their story.
Yeah.
They hear, okay, addict, drug addiction, and they want to go from there and use whatever method they want to use, and they don't listen to the person.
Yeah.
So I try to teach different skills, different coping mechanisms, but I want to get to the root of what's causing a lot of this. And just I've had sessions with clients where I think I've said 2 sentences in an hour, and it just provokes them to talk. It
Yeah.
provokes them to go and let everything out, like the floodgates are opening.
Yeah, absolutely. You validate what they need. That's all. Even my therapist, when she validates the fact that being angry is not a bad thing, and anger is your biggest advocate
Yep.
because your angry part of you knows your worth, and that worth isn't being met. And so that's why we get angry. And it's validating their feelings and listening to them because so many times people get shut up.
Yep. Completely.
And it's so sad that it could be as simple as like, listen to me. And I just need someone to hear me and be there. And a lot of people just don't have that in their life. Um,
Even in what I've noticed, even in formal therapy or counseling, there's always, I don't want to say an agenda, but it tends to always follow a form.
yeah,
And in coaching, I feel I have so much freedom to explore something with my client, to even if they say, no, I don't want to talk about that, we can say, okay, that's fine. Let's go somewhere else.
yeah,
What do you want to talk about? Talk to me about who you are. What do we want to work on here?
yeah,
So it's wonderful to have that freedom.
yeah. I love that. I love that so much. So, why do you think there seems to be so much more addiction now in our society, now more than ever?
That's a good question. My personal view on that is that there's so much turmoil in the world at large, not just the US, but
Yeah.
at the world at large. And people are looking for a way to just get away from it. We're connected 24/7. The news services, no matter what, you open your phone and something negative pops up.
Yep.
Social media, wonderful thing. I love social media, but it contributes to things like depression
Yeah.
because people become addicted to those likes. They become addicted to that living their best life. So I think that one of the biggest contributors to addiction nowadays is just looking
Yeah.
for escape because there's unrealistic expectations with all of this stuff. Social media is a prime example. What on social media is not that person,
Yeah.
most of the time, unless you're being completely transparent and honest. This person doesn't live on $1 million yacht and doesn't have all this cash that's raining from the sky.
Yeah.
And you get impressionable people who want to live like that. And then they realize, well, okay, it's a little bit harder than I thought. So let's go find some way to escape.
Yeah. I recently watched a documentary on Netflix called Dancing with the Devil. And it's about a cult that this man created that is full of TikTok dancers, like viral TikTok dancers. And so like you see the perspective from the family and how they've cut everybody off and all of that. And they're trying to get in touch with their family member and they've been cut off. And you see these people doing amazing things and living this like joyful life, dancing and so forth on social media, but they're in a cult and they're told that they can't be around family and until it becomes convenient for the leader, right? Until media starts coming in and makes it
Wow.
convenient. It's just
I need to go watch this
it is
documentary.
it's
You've got me
so
interested.
it's so mind-blowing. But my daughter, she's 15 and she loves to dance and she can like look at somebody dance and mimic the dance routine. And I'm like, God, I wish I had that coordination in my brain, but I have a lot of rhythm, very little coordination. She's got it all, right? And
I have none of the above, by the way. No coordination, no rhythm at all.
no rhythm. So I see her watch these people, and funny enough, she follows the sister of the main character, if you will, that
Mhm.
they focused on. She follows the sister, the one that's like trying to get her sister out of this cult. And my daughter's like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I know her." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." They are literally seeing this lifestyle that they're like, I want to have a viral video or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's not what you think it is. It is this like dopamine hit, and I want to live the way they're living. And they can't even appreciate what is in their life and the blessings that are in their life because they are just looking at that comparison. And
They want that life so
yeah,
much. And that's a really good point that you make because you get a dopamine hit every time you see a like or every time
mhm,
somebody comments and you're looking at it. What happens when those comments and those likes don't do it for you anymore?
yeah.
You have to look for something else for your next hit of dopamine.
Yeah. Yeah, it is scary to navigate. I held them off of phones and social media as much as I thought like I could. And so it's still like you never know, right? There's no manual for parenting. And did I maybe do this too soon or allowed that too soon? Like with my oldest one, I think my oldest is 20, but I think she wasn't allowed to have a phone until she was in high school.
That's awesome,
And
by the way. I fully support that 100%. I'm not a parent, but I think that's great.
well, it got younger. My son, he's 18 now. He's about to be 19, but it was like in eighth grade. And then my little one was like in like seventh grade. So little by little went a little earlier. And I wish I would have stayed strong on by the time you're in high school, you can get one. However, it's crazy how society is now that even if I was going to go pick up my daughter from school or drop something off, this is for my youngest, they were like, text her. And I'm like, she doesn't have a phone. And the school would look at me crazy. And I'm like, well, she doesn't have a phone. I need you to like call her down. And
Yeah, like
it,
what you guys used to do back
yeah,
before phones.
yeah. And so it was just mind-blowing to me. And I think that's where the pressure of society or whatever comes in, even for parents. You're like, okay, well, I guess I'll do this. And I have like a ton of restrictions on her phone, but then little by little, again, it just keeps diminishing, and I'll give you 6 hours on your phone or whatever. So it is trying to stop that dopamine hit to start so early in life. However, I agree with you. I feel like that is part of the issues with society right now, is because they're looking for that next excitement.
And I just want to say I like the comment you made about there's no manual to be a parent. And that applies so much to, I'm thinking about it here, that applies so much to my own mother, because I can find 1,000 things wrong that she did looking back in hindsight. When I would work overnight, she would be, hey, do you want a bump of this to keep you awake? It's like, what parent's supposed to do that for their child? So that
Yeah.
is like an unhealthy relationship right there.
Yeah.
And I could look back at all of this stuff, but I don't, because she was one of the most, if not the most central, important person in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had this conversation a lot lately. I feel like there isn't a manual for parenting. You always wake up wanting to do the best that you can. And that may look different every single day. My youngest is now 15, and it has been really eye-opening, even how much I've evolved as a parent. And with that, I have had conversations with my parents, like probably like 3 years ago. I had a conversation with my parents about how they reacted when at 19, I told them about what happened to me at 16. And I told them, knowing the pressure of a parent now and having my own teenagers, and knowing that all you want is for their safety and for them to be healthy and happy and okay. And knowing that, I'm not coming to you with this conversation in terms of any type of judgment. I just need you to know what I needed at that moment and what I didn't receive, and what my 19-year-old self needed from you. And I'm prepared to give it to myself, but I need to heal this. And I need you to know that, like, all I needed in that moment was a hug and support and love, rather than judgment and making me feel additional shame and guilt for something that wasn't my fault. And
Absolutely.
so it became this, like, I'm not judging you for this. I just need to heal this part of my staying quiet of how this hurt me.
It's like you were saying before, you just need to be heard.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to, you just need to be heard. You don't have to be understood per se,
Yes.
but the fact that you're getting it out means a lot,
Yeah.
you know,
It
because
healed
it's,
a whole lot.
yeah, it's things that you couldn't talk about before.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably a regret of mine, that I didn't get that chance with my mother to say, hey, mom, it probably wasn't a good idea to share drugs with
Yeah.
me and make that a normal behavior, or it probably wasn't a good idea for you to take off for a week or two at a time. And my grandparents scream and yell and abuse me, and wanting to know where my mother is because I'm not their job.
Yeah.
So,
So you said something earlier that really resonated with me, and I'll give you some context from it as well. I had a podcast interview a week ago with a lady that she went through a lot, and when her mother passed away, that she started doing therapy and did hypnotherapy and whatever. She says she felt her mother on her back
mhm.
saying, I wasn't able to protect you in this earth. However, I'm going to start to protect you from going forward from this
Wow.
realm, right? And so this lady had all of a sudden like clairvoyant abilities.
Wow. Okay.
And so she told me prior to us starting to record the podcast that she saw my dad on my left side. And
Oh,
I was like, what? That was the most like mind-blowing experience. And when my daughter got hit by a car, she said that my ex-boyfriend, which passed away of a massive heart attack, that he protected her.
wow.
And it should
That's
have been
powerful.
it was powerful. She said like a comment. So I have my vision board up here in front of me,
Mhm.
and I have a picture of me and my dad right here on my left side. And beforehand, she's not Spanish, but she said, I keep hearing the phrase dame un beso, which means give me a kiss in Spanish. Well, the picture on my left-hand side is me giving a kiss to my dad on his cheek.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing completely, right? And I feel very at ease now. I would get annoyed, if you will, when people, because my dad was just like one of those people that everyone just loved. He was just such a good-hearted, happy person. And when people would come up to me and tell me, "Oh, I had a dream with your dad," I would be like, "Why is he coming to you in your dreams and not in mine?" And
Hmm.
so I felt like this tug of jealousy that it's not fair. I was so close to him. Why is it that you're getting to see him and I can't?
Yeah, and I'm not, and I want to.
And I want to. And so she was like, you don't need him in your dreams. He's literally always with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, since my dad passed away, I see cardinals everywhere.
How
And
long ago was it that your dad passed away? If you don't mind
22.
my asking.
No, not at all. October 2022.
Okay.
So it's very recent. I had never paid attention to birds ever. And now I know the chirp of a cardinal. I speak to the cardinals, right? So like I'll be walking and I hear the chirp and I can't see him. And I was like, are you gonna come visit me today? Because I can't see you. I can hear you, but I can't see you. And all of a sudden, like down the street, this like cardinal swoops in front of me, and I'm like, hi, good morning.
I'm having one of those mind blown moments right now, actually, because my mother's name was Robin, and she did a lot of paintings, ceramic paintings, and she had ceramic paintings, oil paintings of robins all over the place. And there are still some times where I'll go out or I will be somewhere, even if I'm traveling or whatnot, and I'll see robins and they'll just come across and I have to stop and think like, hi, mom.
So when you said earlier that you still feel her, it's her.
Oh yeah, I was hesitant to believe that years ago. Within the past 7 years of my recovery, I went through my own spiritual awakening,
Yeah.
and I'm not religious per se. I know there's more, and I know there's something.
Yeah.
So I call myself just a spiritualist.
Yep.
And so probably 3 years ago, maybe, is when I really started to accept the fact that all of these things that I keep hearing in my head that would be something that my mom would say. So I attribute all of that to her.
Yeah.
I tell my friends, I still have conversations with my mom.
I
We'll
have
still talk.
I'll full on like, what do we have for me today? It's so crazy what that intention will do for your own healing. So the reason that I said that and the reason that this has been so long drawn out is because I feel like when you said, I wish I could have that conversation with my mom of like, maybe this wasn't a good idea, you literally can. And it could still heal because you are aware that she is all around you, that she is still there. So it feels like maybe she can't talk back, but you could probably
And
feel or
no,
sense.
you're 100% correct. And I've done that to a degree, and it's a work in progress. It's not something that you're just going to snap your fingers and say it, and then it's going to make everything better. So
Yeah.
I always look at it as just a step by step process. And It's interesting. My mom, when I was starting my recovery journey, I still felt that she was there, and it was
Yeah.
something that I couldn't explain. And I always remember hearing in my head, in my dreams, in my mother's voice, I know I didn't do enough, but you need to do more.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it for the longest time until I started my recovery journey and I was trying different modalities. Like I tried Narcotics Anonymous, I tried Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody starts with those, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to speak bad on any of them because they all work for people, but the religious aspect of those just did not resonate with me. There's a lot of things about those programs that just don't resonate with me. And when I was going through them I gave them a shot, a month or two each. When I was going through them, I remember my mom telling me stories about how she went through Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, and they never worked for her either.
Yeah.
And I think it hit me really hard during my recovery that my mother and I are so much more alike than I gave us credit for.
Yeah.
So much more for everything she had to overcome, everything I'm had to overcome. And she's been my constant companion,
Yeah.
which through my recovery. And that's one of the things, like I said, where she told me, I didn't do enough, but you need to do more. You
Yeah.
need to do better. And I try to live by that as much as I can, especially when it comes to my own healing
Yeah.
and my own recovery.
That's beautiful. I love that because we do, and like, I want my kids to do better than me. So I get to leave my legacy for them. However, what I want is for you to one up me.
Mhm.
Please one up me. Please do better. And I try to be the best that I can be as a person, as a parent, as a human being, and go do life and do better. Like, do better than what I was able to accomplish, because then that legacy was just that building block, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I love that. So, what are the different types of recovery methods that are available to people? And then give me kind of an idea why you feel like addicts are so stigmatized in our society.
So there are the Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, which are basically the same thing. They just focus on different aspects and different substances. There's Smart Recovery, which is something I found a couple of years ago, which I am absolutely in love with. It's an
Okay.
online based format for meetings. There's no judgment. There's no, oh, if you screw up, you're going to go back to day one, which
Yeah.
I don't believe in that at all. And I'll go into that later. There's other ones called Recovery Dharma, which I
Okay.
have not personally experienced, but it's like a spiritualist type of
Yep.
recovery method. And I have not had a chance to experience it at all. You can find groups anywhere. There's several on Facebook, there's several on all over the place, and you can even find them on the Meetup
Yep.
application. And it's people who are just spending time together. And so there are as many methods to recovery as stars in the sky. It's different for each person. And that's what I've always felt makes it so beautiful and so personal, because there is a method out there for you. And no method is going to be the end all be all. What worked for me, and I didn't, like I said, I went through AA, and it just didn't resonate with me. The religious aspect, the having to surrender yourself to your addiction, I don't believe in that, because when you surrender yourself and tell people I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic, you are basically saying that's my identity.
Yeah.
And in my coaching sessions with my clients, a big thing is I want them to reclaim their power, reclaim their identity. And by saying every time, hello, I'm Ryan and I'm an addict,
Yeah.
your brain is going to start believing that after a while. And you're always going to have that in the back of your head that, oh, I'm an addict. It's because of my addiction. It's because of that. And I don't believe in that at all.
Yeah.
There's there's so much personal power that you can take back.
And there's so much power in words.
Absolutely. And they matter.
Yeah.
They absolutely matter. And same thing with going back to day one. If you have a mess up, there's a statement which some people agree with, some people don't, that says relapse is part of recovery. You can take that for what you will. The fact is that relapses is a big part of recovery because statistically, I believe it's 68 to 75% of people will relapse at some point. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you look at the methods of AA or NA that state you have to go back to day one, even if you had 5 years clean and sober. I don't believe in that because
Yeah.
they erase that 5 years completely.
Yeah. And you work
And
so hard.
exactly. And that's that smart recovery that I told you about. It's not a judgment-based system. You can go in and say, oh, I messed up last night. I took a drink or I had a glass of wine or I went out and I took a bump or I did this. And the facilitator is going to say, okay, all right, well, how did that work for you? Tell me what you learned from doing that. How do you feel?
Yeah.
What can you learn from this experience to move forward and make yourself better?
Yeah. It's an introspective way of like, so as a very similar and completely off the topic thing in my lovely 40s, my body can't tolerate cheese anymore. And
I can't either.
it sucks because that's one of my favorite foods. But I can either say, all right, well, I'm gonna suck it up and not feel great tomorrow and have this amazing pizza, or I'm going to say, you know what? I feel like I'm going to pass because I don't want to feel like that tomorrow. So it helps you realize, how do I feel today if I had that mess up yesterday?
Yeah,
And do I really want to continue to feel this way? And it's giving you the agency of saying, no, but I have a choice to say, I'm deciding not to feel that crappy anymore.
exactly. Exactly. And that the fact that it's a choice and you're making the choice for yourself is extremely empowering.
Yes.
Not having to, so my higher power says I need to do this, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
If that works for you, more power to you.
Exactly. Yeah. In Spanish, we say para los gustos los colores. So it means for every kind of liking, there's a color. So,
Okay.
pick your color and it'll be to
I
your
like that.
liking.
I like
Um,
that. Actually, that's a great way of saying that. That's a
yeah,
great,
like everyone works differently and some things work with some people. For my health journey, I needed something that I could do from home because I had 3 little kids and I was single mom, so I couldn't just be like, all right, you guys stay here while I go to the gym. And so I found something that worked for me. I worked from home. I worked out from home. I started watching these nutrition programs and figured out what worked for me. Yay. It just, it's whatever
it's
works for
fine.
you.
Exactly. It's like when you're going to the doctor looking for help with depression or bipolar disorder. The first one is never going to work. And
Yep.
if it does, then you're in that 0.5 percentile that everybody wishes they were in. Part of the journey is putting the work in to find what works for you.
Yes.
And to act back to your question about what the stigma is, I would say that in my experience, the stigma revolves around when you hear the term addict, you associate that word with so many different things: homeless, broke, criminal, and a host of other things. So, to a lot of people, the normal people out there, they hear addict and they think criminal, they think bad person. It's just like a flashing red light in their head.
Yeah.
And I understand the perspective because they've never experienced anything like that. They probably know some people who have addiction issues and don't even know it.
Yep.
So I think a lot of the stigma comes from just people not wanting to understand and explore
Yeah.
that topic at all. They don't want to educate themselves. Um, one of the things I tell my clients is I know people with addiction issues who are some of the most resourceful people I have ever met in my life. And some of my friends who and people who know me who don't understand all of that will be like, what do you mean? Are you kidding? And say, yeah, when you wake up in the morning and you're going through withdrawal and you're broke, you have no money, no gas in your car, and you start what is akin to an 8 to 10 hour job every
Yeah.
single day. You're looking for stuff. Then you finally find somebody who will get it to you. Then you have to go find the money. Then you
Yeah.
have to work out how much gas it's going to take. It's so resourceful. It's just, it has to be put towards something different.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that because, yeah, I agree. I feel like coming from my brother, I even saw that as a kid. Like he figured out a way.
Mhm.
He figured out what he needed, how to get it, who to talk to. He could literally talk to anybody. He could literally sell anything to anybody. Every company that he works for, he's always number one sales or whatever. It's just crazy. But I feel like that's what happened. So I have a huge belief that life happens for you and not to you. And even if we're going through the hells of hell, I feel like you could always find a blessing in it and a lesson in it, right? So what did that resourcefulness get my brother? He is literally like always top of whatever company he's working for. He's
That's
a GM
awesome.
of a T-Mobile store and number one in the region every single time. Number
Wow.
one in the company every single time. And I'm like, dude, you can literally sell like ice to Eskimos. Like, are you freaking kidding me? But then now that you say that, I'm like, duh, people always just loved him. And whatever words came out of his mouth, he literally went through like 20 years of figuring out how to, even if he didn't have the money, how to get drugs. Like, duh.
And you know what, it's something that you don't realize at the time. Look, hindsight being 2020, it's
Yeah.
like I wonder how I'm not a good salesman because I had so much ability to find stuff, to get somebody to give it to me without even paying, and then getting there, getting home, and then starting it over, and then starting the process the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the big things also that I tell clients, and I've done a couple of videos on TikTok about this, is addiction is a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's 100% a full-time job. And for me, what helped me was getting back into physical fitness,
Yeah.
weightlifting, exercise, martial arts. And I've said this to a lot of people, you have to find something constructive to fill that void,
Yes.
because that void, which was filled with substances, alcohol, or gambling, or eating, or any type of addiction that you can name, is going to come right back around because that is your coping skill. That's exactly what you know how to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then, so I always tell them, for me, I just started going to the gym a lot. I started doing physical fitness. I started getting back into that, which I was into beforehand. And after my journey through addiction, I had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you just have to find constructive ways to use that same output that you have. I love that. That's perfect. What's so important about your recovery story versus anyone else's?
I would say that my recovery story is one of, and I don't recommend this for everybody, but I did the work on my own because I didn't know that there were resources available. Personal coaching was not a thing 7 years ago. It wasn't known as much as it's known today.
Yeah.
I would say what makes my story special is the ability to recognize that there is help out there. all the time.
Yeah.
You can do things on your own like I did, and I would say just logic the shit out of it and
Yeah.
how you're gonna, get off of it. But there are easier ways, there are more constructive ways. And a big takeaway that I tell people all the time is that there is a life out there that is your perfect life, and you can get it. You can absolutely get there. And there is no reason why going through addiction or substance abuse or any of that should keep you
Yeah.
from that life. So, yeah, my biggest thing with what I think makes my story different is that it's proof you can do anything on your own. I went from 300 to 400 milligrams of Oxycontin a day down to nothing
Yeah.
in a couple of months' time, which all of my doctors, all of my therapists said they've never heard of anybody else doing that. So you have so much power within you to make anything happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wholeheartedly believe in that. It is easier when you have someone that's been there that kind of can coach you through it. But yeah, absolutely. You have everything that it takes to do it within you. And I think that's so powerful. That is amazing. So what limiting beliefs or roadblocks do you feel you had to overcome in order to get to where you are now?
My limiting beliefs, I had a big, big limiting belief when I started my recovery journey that I was not good enough. And I don't want to say it's funny, but it's interesting how a lot of these limiting beliefs, they're the same for people, just worded completely differently, but
Yeah.
the root of them is exactly the same. My big limiting belief was I wasn't good enough. I had screwed my life up so much that I was just going to go away and just forget everybody that I had ever known and disappear completely.
Yeah.
And it comes back around to that personal power, that taking back your personal power and being empowered to make those changes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that so much. And then what daily habits do you feel like helped you reach your level of success?
I love this one. So physical fitness, like I
Yeah.
said, that's still a big thing for me. Not 3 or 4 hours a day anymore, but,
Good.
but
Because
yeah,
no one
but
needs all of that, but yes, at the beginning, maybe.
I just turned 40. I can't do that.
Yeah. I do 30, 45 minutes tops and we're good.
Yeah, I do about an hour and I'm good. So keeping that physical fitness routine, that healthy outlet for energy, that anything that happens during the day, that negative energy builds up, that you need to clean out, that all gets taken care of at the gym. A a big one, which I didn't even start until 2 years after I had quit everything completely. Meditation, meditation.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think it is that big of a thing, but quieting your mind for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, when you wake up or in the middle of your day or before you go to bed is so powerful. Just
Yeah.
stopping the train of conscious thought and just existing and being one.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
so hard for people like myself who had addiction issues, is to be in their own space with their own train of thought, or stopping that train of thought, because the natural reaction is I want to fill that.
Yeah.
I need to worry about other things. And meditation forces you to confront a lot of these things.
Yes.
And I did not really get into that until I had my, spiritual awakening
Yeah.
per se. I
Yeah.
started following so many authors, so many speakers, Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza. I saw Abraham Hicks earlier this year in San Francisco, and I was just like blown away at just seeing her live. And I listen
Yeah.
to her every morning now. Joe Dispenza, he's another one
Oh,
that
love
I
him.
love. I'm hoping against hope that he's a speaker at the Summit of Greatness in
Yeah.
LA. with Lewis Howes this year.
I
But
love all the people that you're mentioning right now. So I listen to an app every morning called Growth Day. And it's from the creator is Brendan Burchard. Um,
okay.
and he has speakers like Ed Milet, and I think Lewis Howes has been in there, and Mel Robbins, and just all
Mhm.
these amazing speakers that are constantly teaching us daily, monthly. They usually pick a topic, and it has been so good. And he does a daily fire every morning, and I wake up and I listen to that. The first thing, I put my headphones in and I get ready to listening to Brendan give me some goodness in my ears. And then meditation, and
Mhm.
just that is just all the good things.
And I learned from listening to Abraham Hicks and Joe Dispenza and reading their books. I have piles of their books and some I haven't even read yet because I keep
Yep,
buying more.
I feel you.
But manifestation, I
Yeah,
never, ever in my life before would have believed that you could manifest things just by the power of your thoughts. And that was an incredible, incredible awakening. And that helped me to keep in line with my recovery
yeah,
because I imagine every day I visualize where I want to go, the life that I want to have. And I don't want a superstar, existence. I don't want any of that. I imagine my life as just content and happy. And I see myself getting there every single day, helping people with my coaching business, speaking when I get a chance to speak. It's I feel that getting that word out there, that makes me feel so content and so happy. Like
yeah,
how if you can help one person with your podcast,
yeah,
which I am absolutely positive you're helping hundreds of people with your podcast. If I can do the same thing with coaching and help somebody and be their advocate, be the accountability that they need, be a friend, be devil's advocate if they need it, I've met my purpose.
yeah.
And that's what I realized doing this type of work is it's so fulfilling. And I'm already doing all of these fulfilling things. So all that visualization years ago is coming to pass.
Yeah, I love that so much because I completely wholeheartedly believe in all of that. I feel like, and it's not necessarily, I don't know if content sounds like the right word because we don't want to just stay steady. We want to always grow. And contentment just feels like you're just steady.
You might be onto something there. I can see that.
Because like the progress equals happiness. One of my favorite people is Tony Robbins, and he always like focuses on progress equals happiness.
It's his voice, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
why he's a favorite.
it's
He's amazing.
he is amazing. And so part of my vision is always I want to go to Date with Destiny. That's my big huge goal. And it just makes sense because if we stay content in our life, then there isn't any progression there. It's steady. Whereas when we grow and it's even just a little bit step forward in the right direction, it's growth. I don't know. Content didn't seem like the right word. And I was like, wait,
I know.
what am I looking
I
for?
get it. Actually, the way that you're putting it, I get it absolutely because one of the things I say to my clients, to myself, to my friends is progress over perfection.
Yes.
And that is one of the biggest things for me is I just want to be better than who I was yesterday.
Yes.
I'm not in competition with anybody but myself and who I was yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to succeed. I'm allowed to have setbacks.
Yes.
So content, probably not the right word. You're right. It's what I had in
I
my head
just,
at
I
at the
know. And
time.
I was just like, wait, no, I feel like that's not the right word that I like feel and envision for when you're saying that. Because I understand what you're saying. I feel that.
It's like an amalgamation of several different terms and words that we need to
Yes.
create some new word for
We
because
need a new word for it.
exactly it's, but no, you're right. Actually, now that I think about it, content isn't the right word, but that's what I had at the
But
moment.
I feel though, what you're saying is that you're living that previous vision of
Yes.
you're progressing in life, you're helping people, you're living out your purpose. And this is what the cool thing about life is always happening for you and not to you, because you took everything that you've been through and created the blessing in disguise, right?
And I love that. One of my closest friends, she's a trauma coach, and she helped me get into the world of coaching. Her name's Kristen Fuller. She's amazing. She has that same saying. She's like, addiction did not happen to me. It
Yeah.
happened for me.
Yeah.
And I totally resonate with that completely, because
It's another Tony Robbins thing, by the way.
yeah, it's amazing. And it's helped me to, one of the things that I never thought I would do is I'm writing a book. And I don't want to say odd, but it's not one of those things that I ever pictured myself doing 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you had told me that, hey, you're going to write a book about the opioid epidemic and addiction, and to be like a self-help book for people, I would have looked at my younger self and been like, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for you. In my vision, I always say that I'm a #1 New York Times bestseller, a speaker, and #1 podcast. So I'm in the I'm happy that you got that started.
It's hard. It's hard because you have all these ideas and whatnot, but then you sit down to actually do it, and you're
how are
like,
you going to make this a book?
I can't think of anything. And so I got around that. This is funny, but I got around that by just having Google Docs app on my phone. So would just start dictating. If I feel something, if I think about something, I could be in my car and I'm like, oh God, that idea could be pure gold. And I would just start talking about it and go back and edit it later. Editing it's someone else's job, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that so much. So I will put all of your information in the show notes, but is there anything else that you feel like you want to say that's coming to your heart before we wrap up today?
I would say that to anybody listening, you're not alone. You have addiction, substance abuse. It makes you feel alone. And one of the things that is always said, what's the opposite of addiction? Connection. And connection in this world now is so important, I think, more than it has been in the past, because we are all so isolated. Even though we're so connected, we're so isolated because we could all be at the dinner table and every one of us is on the phone while eating.
Yeah.
So that isolation just breeds everybody to think that there's no connection. So I would say the biggest takeaway, remember, you're not alone at all. And asking for help does not make you any less of a person than anybody else. It makes you a stronger person for realizing that you need to make a change.
Yeah. I love that so much. You guys, Ryan, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
I had so much fun talking with you.
I know I could literally talk to you for a long, long time.
Well, that's part two.
That's part two. We gotta do a part two. So you guys, like I said, I will put all his information in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got as much out of today's conversation with Ryan as I did. And peace out, guys. Love your life. Bye.